In the spring of a forgotten excavation buried beneath layers of stone and silence, archaeologists uncovered a sealed tablet unlike anything they had ever seen. At first glance, it appeared ordinary, a weathered slab of limestone, ancient lettering, cracked edges. Nothing unusual until they translated the first line. It did not describe a king, it did not describe a battle, it did not describe a god. Instead, it described an object hanging above the earth, an object witnessed by thousands. An object that appeared in the sky and then vanished. The inscription was dated to 27 AD, nearly 2,000 years ago. And according to the text, the appearance of this object was so extraordinary that entire cities stopped functioning, markets closed. Priests gathered, soldiers abandoned their posts, people stood frozen beneath the heavens watching something impossible, something that should not have been there, something that ancient witnesses claimed remained visible for days. Then disappeared without a trace. No impact, no explanation, no return. The tablet ends with a chilling warning, a warning that some researchers believe was never intended for the people of that time, but for us. Because if the translation is correct, the object was expected to come back, and tonight we investigate one of the strangest mysteries hidden in the shadows of ancient history, a sealed tablet, a vanished object, and a question that refuses to die. What exactly was seen above Earth in 27 AD, and why did someone go to such extraordinary lengths to preserve the record? The story begins in a landscape where history sleeps beneath dust, a region scarred by centuries of conquest, block temples, forgotten shrines, ruins layered atop ruins. The excavation itself was routine. Researchers were documenting a complex of partially buried structures believed to date to the early Roman period. Nothing suggested that history was about to become stranger. Then workers discovered a stone chamber hidden beneath an older foundation. The entrance had been intentionally blocked. Massive stones had been fitted together so precisely that even small gaps were absent. Whoever sealed the chamber did not want it opened. Not accidentally, not soon, perhaps not ever. Inside they found almost nothing. No treasure, no statues, no ceremonial objects. Only a single stone tablet resting against the far wall waiting, preserved in darkness, protected from weather, protected from time. Protected for nearly 2 millennia, the tablet's inscription was remarkably intact. Its authors had clearly expected future readers. The writing was deliberate, structured, careful, not the language of myth, not the language of poetry. It read more like a witness statement, a record, a testimony. As translation progressed, a disturbing pattern emerged. The text repeatedly emphasized observation. People were told to look upward. Measurements were recorded, positions in the sky were described. Durations were estimated. The writer appeared obsessed with accuracy, almost as though they feared future generations would dismiss what happened. And then came the central claim. A luminous object appeared above Earth, stationary, silent, watching. The account was so unusual that translators initially suspected symbolisms, perhaps a religious metaphor, perhaps a misunderstood astronomical event. But the deeper they examined the wording, the less symbolic it appeared. The object was described as physical, presentable, real. And according to the text, everyone saw it. To understand why this account matters, we must step into the world of 27 AD. The ancient world was vastly different from our own. Night skies were darker. Cities were smaller. Artificial light barely existed. When people looked upward, they saw a universe we can scarcely imagine. The stars were brighter. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of silver fire. Celestial events mattered. Comets terrified populations. Eclipses triggered panic. The heavens were viewed not merely as scenery, but as communication methods from powers beyond human control. Yet ancient observers were not foolish. Contrary to modern stereotypes, many civilizations carefully tracked celestial motion. They knew where planets should appear. They understood seasonal stars. They monitored the sky with astonishing dedication, which makes the tablet's claims even more unsettling. The author repeatedly insists that the object did not behave like anything known. Not a star, not a planet, not a comet, not a meteor, not a cloud, not a divine vision, something else, something unfamiliar, something that forced experienced skywatchers to admit they had no explanation. Ancient records from multiple cultures occasionally describe strange celestial appearances, glowing shields, fiery disks, moving stars, heavenly signs. Most can be explained, some cannot, but few accounts are as detailed as this one. And fewer still were deliberately sealed away. Why preserve this particular event? Why hide it beneath stone? Why ensure it survived for centuries? Those questions would soon become even stranger, because the translation was far from complete. Several sections of the tablet were badly damaged. Time had erased portions of the text. Researchers spent months reconstructing missing passages. As fragments returned, a larger narrative emerged. The object first appeared shortly before sunset. Witnesses noticed an unusual brightness low above the horizon. Initially, many assumed it was a star, yet stars do not appear before darkness, and they do not grow. According to the inscription, the object increased in size as night approached, not rapidly. Slowly, steadily, enough that people became concerned. Crowds gathered, rumors spread, priests climbed temple roofs, merchants abandoned stalls, families assembled outdoors, every eye turned upward. Then something happened that transformed curiosity into fear. The object stopped changing position. It remained fixed in the sky hand after hour, night after night. Unmoving, the author repeatedly stresses this detail. The object did not drift, did not set, did not rise. It occupied a single location. As though anchored above the world itself, ancient observers measured its position against surrounding stars. The measurements remained constant. This should have been impossible. Everything in the sky moves, stars rise and set, planets wander, comets travel. Yet the object remains still, suspended. Watching, the description becomes increasingly vivid. Witnesses compared its appearance to polished metal illuminated from within. Others described it as a bright stone. Some called it a second moon. But none agreed completely because the object seemed to change depending on who observed it. One passage describes an eerie phenomenon. People standing side by side reported different shapes, different colors, different details. As if the object resisted accurate description, as if no two observers were seeing exactly the same thing. And that is where the mystery truly begins. When historians first encountered these passages, skepticism was immediate. Ancient texts are often exaggerated. Memories become myths, stories evolve. Surely there must be a rational explanation. Astronomers reviewed the descriptions. Could it have been a comet? The behavior did not match. Could it have been a supernova? Again, inconsistencies appeared. Could atmospheric conditions have created an optical illusion? Perhaps, but many details resisted explanation. The object remained visible far too long. Its position remained too stable. Its reported appearance remained too unusual. Some scholars suggested religious symbolism. Perhaps the object represented divine authority. Yet the tablet itself repeatedly rejects symbolic language. The author insists that readers should not interpret the account as metaphor. Instead, they are instructed to treat it as observation, a record of events, nothing more, nothing less. Other researchers focused on psychological explanations, mass hysteria, collective misperception, social contagion. Entire populations convincing themselves they saw something extraordinary. History contains examples, yet those cases rarely produce precise measurements. They rarely generate structured observations. And they almost never result in tablets hidden inside sealed chambers. Then archaeologists noticed something unexpected. The reverse side of the tablet contained markings previously overlooked, not writing. A diagram that would ignite controversy. The carving was faint, almost invisible, but advanced imaging revealed its shape, a circle surrounded by smaller circles connected by lines. At first, researchers assumed it represented religious symbolism, ancient cosmology, perhaps planets, perhaps stars. Then a disturbing possibility emerged. The arrangement appeared strangely familiar, too familiar. The central circle resembled Earth. The surrounding circles resembled orbital paths. Some analysts argued this interpretation was absurd. Ancient cultures did not understand orbital mechanics in modern terms. Others disagreed because several proportions appeared mathematically intentional. If the diagram truly represented Earth and surrounding celestial bodies, it implied knowledge centuries ahead of its time. Yet the most controversial feature was not the diagram itself. It was what appeared above it, a single isolated symbol, detached from every other element, positioned beyond the circles, beyond the stars, beyond the known heavens. A symbol matching the object described in the text. The implication was chilling. The object was not being portrayed as part of the sky. It was being portrayed as something entering it, something external, something arriving. Then another translated fragment surfaced, and suddenly the mystery deepened again. The inscription claims the object emitted no sound, no heat, no visible flame, yet people felt its presence. Animals behaved strangely. Birds altered migration patterns. Dogs refused to leave shelter. Livestock became agitated. Entire flocks reportedly changed direction. The author records these observations with unusual seriousness, not as superstition, as evidence that the object affected the world around it. But how? The tablet offers no explanation, only observations. And then comes perhaps the strangest statement of all. The object was not merely observed, it was expected. Near the final third of the inscription, the tone changes dramatically. The author stops describing what happened. Instead, they begin discussing what was believed to happen next. Ancient witnesses apparently consulted older records, older stories, older warnings. Texts that no longer exist. References to an event remembered across generations, an appearance in the sky, a watcher above the earth, a visitor, a sign. Whatever name it carried, the pattern was familiar. The object had allegedly appeared before, long before 27 AD. Perhaps centuries earlier, perhaps longer. No surviving records confirm these claims, yet the tablet's author clearly believed them. And that belief transformed the narrative. The object was no longer treated as an anomaly, it was treated as a recurrence. A return, something cyclical, something expected to revisit humanity. One damaged section appears to describe councils of priests debating its meaning. Another references hidden archives. Another speaks of knowledge restricted to select groups. The exact wording remains disputed, but the implication is clear. Certain individuals may have believed they understood what the object was, or at least believed they possessed fragments of an explanation. Then comes the most unsettling passage. The author warns future readers not to focus solely on the appearance. Instead, they should focus on the disappearance, because according to the text, that was the true mystery, not why it came. Why it left, this is where speculation enters dangerous territory. And where history blurs into possibility, some researchers propose that the tablet describes a misunderstood astronomical phenomenon, an unusual conjunction, a transient celestial event, a rare atmospheric anomaly amplified through cultural interpretation. This remains the safest explanation, but not everyone agrees. Others suggest the account preserves memory of a forgotten scientific tradition. Ancient observers recording something genuinely unusual with remarkable accuracy, a phenomenon now lost to history. Then there are the more controversial theories dismissed by mainstream scholarship but endlessly debated by mystery researchers. What if the object was exactly what witnesses described? A physical presence, an unknown object suspended above Earth. An artificial structure, a visitor, a probe, a machine. Such theories sound extraordinary, yet supporters point to recurring patterns across civilizations. Stories of watchers in the sky, objects descending from the heavens. Knowledge arriving from unknown sources. Ancient records separated by oceans, yet sharing oddly similar themes. Coincidence? Perhaps, but coincidence is the fuel of mystery. Another theory proposes something even stranger, not extraterrestrial origin. Interdimensional origin, the object was not traveling through space, it was crossing boundaries between realities, appearing temporarily within our world before returning elsewhere. This idea remains entirely speculative. Yet some proponents note the conflicting witness descriptions, different shapes, different appearances, different perceptions, almost as though observers struggled to interpret something fundamentally unfamiliar, something that did not belong. Something that human perception itself could not fully process. Impossible? Maybe, but then the final translation emerged, and even skeptics found themselves unsettled. The closing section of the tablet had remained undeciphered for years. Damage obscured critical lines, fragments were missing, meaning remained uncertain, then advances in imaging technology recovered enough text to reveal the ending. What emerged was not a conclusion, it was a warning. The author states that the object eventually vanished, not gradually, instantly, one moment present, the next absent, no fading, no movement, no departure. Gone, as though erased, crowds reportedly screamed, some fell to their knees. Others believed the world itself was ending. The disappearance was more shocking than the appearance, because witnesses had become accustomed to its presence. Days of observation had normalized the impossible. Then it vanished, and reality suddenly felt wrong. Yet the final lines contain something stranger. The author claims that records were sealed because future generations would doubt what occurred, mock it, dismiss it, forget it. The account therefore had to survive. Preserved until a time when humanity might understand more. And then comes the final sentence, the most debated line on the entire tablet, a line that translators continue to argue over. One interpretation reads, "It departed before the appointed hour." Another reads, "It was not the final appearance." And a third, perhaps the most chilling, reads, "It shall be seen again when the watchers return." Nobody knows which translation is correct. Perhaps none are, perhaps all are. But after nearly 2,000 years, the message still lingers waiting, like the tablet itself, hid beneath stone, preserved in darkness, carrying a mystery across centuries. Tonight, somewhere on Earth, millions of people will look toward the sky, Most will see stars, some will see satellites. A few will witness meteors briefly crossing the darkness, and perhaps that is all there is. Perhaps the sealed tablet records nothing more than a misunderstood celestial event, a curious artifact from a distant age, a puzzle without an answer. But history has a habit of hiding its strangest truths in unexpected places: a sealed chamber, a forgotten ruin, a weathered inscription, a warning nobody was meant to read, because what makes this mystery endure is not what the object was. It is the possibility that ancient witnesses were trying desperately to tell us something they believed mattered, something important enough to preserve. For 2,000 years. The object appeared, it remained, it vanished. And the people who saw it never forgot. Neither, apparently, did the author of the tablet. The chamber was sealed, the record was hidden, the message survived. And now, after centuries of silence, the question returns: what was hanging above Earth in 27 AD? Why did it disappear? And if the final warning was correct, what happens if it comes back? Perhaps the answer lies buried beneath another forgotten ruin. Perhaps it waits inside a lost archive, or perhaps on some distant night yet to come. Humanity will look upward once again and recognize something it has seen before, something recorded long ago, something ancient observers tried to warn us about. Until then, the sealed tablet remains exactly what it has always been: a message from the past. A mystery without a solution, and a reminder that the greatest secrets in human history may not be buried beneath the earth, they may be waiting above it.